On December 16, 2004, a horrible murder was committed in the town of Skidmore. The FBI was already involved in the investigation from the first minutes. In the history of the USA, there were no analogues to this crime, so on the first day, all TV channels of the country talked about this case. But as strange as that sounds, in this case, it's not suicide anymore, it's what it was for, and in particular, what the killer stole from his victim. Bobby Joe Stinnett and his husband had known each other since childhood. They both grew up in the small town of Skidmore, Missouri, which has a population of about 300. The boy and the girl lived next door and had been spending a lot of time together since they were young. They had always been very close, and 3 years after graduating from high school, they married and moved in together. Zeb worked in a local factory. As for Bobby Joe, she was a dog farmer. In this case, she had one of the most important rules. Before she sold a puppy to someone, she had to meet the person and make sure that the puppy fell into good hands. She often attended various dog shows and spent a lot of time on specialized dog forums, where she sometimes found new hosts for her puppies. Love for animals was not Bobby Joe's only passion, and he also loved children. Ever since high school, she used to babysit, stay with the neighborhood kids, so it's no surprise that when she found out she was pregnant in April 2004, she was over the moon. The young couple was getting ready to join the family, and by Christmas, they both looked forward to the same gift, the appearance of their firstborn. On the morning of December 16, 2004, Zeb left for work as usual. Bobby Joe was already 9 months pregnant. The girl planned to spend the whole day at home. The day before, she had arranged to meet a woman who wanted to buy a rat terrier puppy. Bobby Joe had known a customer a long time. Her name was Darlene Fisher. They met at one of the dog forums and had been talking online for over 6 months. Darlene lived in a nearby town called Fairfax, about 30 kilometers from the Stinnett family home. Regular Bobby Joe was meeting buyers at her house. At about 2:30 p.m., Bobby Joe's mother, Becky Harper, called her daughter. Becky's car broke down, and she asked her daughter to take her to the auto shop. Bobby Joe couldn't have done it right now because Darlene Fisher was gonna be there any minute. So she told her mother she would pick her up in an hour. At some point, the doorbell rang. Bobby Joe said it was probably Darlene, then hung up. An hour later, at 3:30 p.m., Becky Harper walked out onto her front porch and was surprised that her daughter had not yet come to pick her up. She tried to contact her daughter, but her calls remained unanswered. Bobby Joe's house was about 1 kilometer from her mother's house, and after unsuccessful phone calls, Becky decided to go to her daughter herself and find out why she wasn't answering her phone. The woman entered the house in shock. She saw her daughter lying on the floor in a pool of blood. It is impossible to put into words the feelings of parents in this situation. In the hope of saving her daughter, the woman immediately called 911. Police and an ambulance arrived at the scene, but despite the prayers of the mother, as well as the efforts of the paramedics, the girl was never rescued. During the examination of the crime scene, it was established that the assailant stole something from his victim, namely her child. As soon as the paramedics noticed, the assailant removed the baby from the abdomen of the victim's 9th month of pregnancy. The medical examiner found that the perpetrator attacked from behind. He put a rope around Bobby Joe's neck and strangled her. At some point, the girl passed out. Probably the perpetrator thought she was already dead. The attackers then pulled out a knife and began to cut the baby out of the stomach of their victim. At that moment, the girl regained consciousness. The criminal again put a rope around her neck and this time completed his work. Such a crime shocked the entire Skidmore. Almost everyone here knew each other, and nobody could believe that this could happen in their little town. The victim's neighbors told the police that they had seen a red car outside her home the previous day. Bobby Joe's mother also informed the police that her daughter was supposed to meet a woman named Darlene Fisher from nearby Fairfax. But the investigation revealed that a man named Fairfax simply did not exist. The main hope was for cyber experts working with the victim's computer. They did manage to find Bobby Joe's correspondence with Darlene Fisher. After that, the experts identified the ISPA of the alleged killer, who provided invaluable information for the investigation. As it turned out, Darlene Fisher used the internet dial-up. This is a type of internet connection using a city phone line. This already enabled the police to identify the telephone number of the owner of the house from which the internet connection was made. The phone number was registered to a man named Kevin Montgomery. He lived in Melbourne, Kansas, more than 200 kilometers from where the crime was committed. The day after the murder, the police and the FBI were outside his house. They were absolutely not surprised to see a red Toyota in the yard. Kevin graciously invited the officers to the house. After going inside, the police saw Kevin's wife, 36-year-old Lisa Montgomery. The woman was sitting on the sofa in front of the TV and holding a newborn baby. Lisa explained to the police that yesterday she went shopping in Topeka, 60 kilometers from her husband's house. During the trip, she went into labor, which she told Kevin on the phone. She was taken to a women's clinic where she gave birth to the same girl she was holding. On the same day, Lisa and her daughter were discharged from the clinic because both she and the girl were perfectly healthy. Kevin went to Topeka, where he picked up Lisa and her daughter from a parking lot at one of the malls. They then went home to Melbourne. It was obvious to the police that this was a very strange story, but at the moment the main task was to make the arrest so that the child did not suffer. One of the agents asked Lisa, "Mom, you can give the baby to my colleague and come with me to another room for a private conversation." That's what Lisa said. Yes, of course. She gave the child to a police officer. Kevin or Lisa were arrested at the same time. The police have requested the same clinic Lisa was talking about. They were told that no woman named Lisa Montgomery had ever been admitted to the clinic. The woman then changed her testimony and said that she had actually given birth at home, but she couldn't prove it. Even her husband, Kevin, couldn't prove it. And only now, realizing that she had already lost her husband's support, did Lisa admit to killing Bobby Joe. And this baby that she supposedly gave birth to was actually carved out of Bobby Joe Stinnett's stomach. Kevin Montgomery had absolutely nothing to do with it. For the past 8 months, he'd been convinced that his wife was indeed pregnant. After Lisa's arrest, the girl was handed over to her father. The baby was completely healthy. He was unharmed, except for a small cut near his left eye. The girl was named Victoria Joe, just like her mother wanted. As for Lisa, the police began to investigate her past in order to understand what prompted the woman to do such a terrible thing. Lisa Montgomery was born in February 1968 in Fort Lewis, Washington. Her father, Edgar, was in the army and in South Korea at the time. As for her mother, Judy, she was a housewife. Edgar and Judy's marriage did not last long, and when Lisa was only 3 years old, her mother filed for divorce. Sometime after this, Judy began dating a man who was considerably older than her. He used to drink too much, which often made him aggressive. He's been sexually abusing Lisa for years. One night, when Lisa was 15, Judy caught her husband's daughter together. According to Lisa, the man then left their family and the mother accused the girl of seducing her husband and that it was because of her that he left. But Judy herself denied it. At this point, Lisa's mother had 5 children. Lisa was the eldest. After a while, Judy began dating a local sheriff, Richard Bowman. Richard and Judy soon married. The man had a son from his first marriage, Carl, who was 23 years old at the time. Lisa met him when she was 16, and even though they were half brothers and half sisters, a few months after they met, they started dating. When Lisa turned 18, she and Carl moved in together. After a while, Lisa became pregnant and they married. In January 1987, Lisa had her first child with Carl. Over the next 3 years, Lisa gave birth to 3 more children. The children described her as a cold woman who always kept a distance with them. In 1990, Lisa underwent a sterilization operation. According to her husband, it was a joint decision. However, according to Lisa herself, she did not want this, but her mother and husband forced her to take this step. A year after that, Carl and Lisa's marriage broke up, and as a result of the trial, the girl received full custody of their 4 children. In 1995, Lisa and Carl resumed their relationship and remarried. However, Lisa cheated on him, and they developed again in 1997. This time, the court divided custody of the children. 2 adult children moved in with their father, and 2 younger children stayed with Lisa. In 1999, while working at a factory in Topeka, Lisa met Kevin Montgomery. The same year they married. Lisa's ex-husband, Carl, also married around the same time period, a woman named Vanessa. Carl did not think Lisa was a good mother, so he went to court in early 2004 in order to get custody not only of their two oldest children, but also of the children who lived with Lisa. Lisa had to retaliate. She felt that if she got pregnant now, she would look more favorable to the court. In April 2004, she began telling everyone that she and Kevin were expecting a baby. She started wearing baggy things that covered up her stomach. This spectacle affected everyone except her ex-husband Carl, who knew she could no longer have children. On December 10, 2004, Carl and his lawyer filed a motion accusing Lisa of lying and attempting to manipulate the court. Lisa didn't want to look like a liar in court, so she decided to do something radical. As a consequence, on December 16, 2004, Lisa strangled Bobby Jo Stinnett. She then cut her baby out of her mother's womb. The police also found out that Lisa and Bobby Jo had been dating before the murder. It was the first time that they had met. They met in April 2004 when Bobby Jo was already pregnant. Lisa's younger daughter was very interested in breeding dogs and liked to attend dog shows. She went to one with her mother, where Lisa met Bobby Jo. After this meeting, Lisa communicated with the girl online on both her own behalf and that of the fictional Darlene Fisher. So when Bobby Jo saw Lisa instead of Darlene on her doorstep, she didn't feel any danger because she knew this woman. The trial of Lisa Montgomery took place in October 2007. Her husband, Kevin Montgomery, was never charged with any crime because he was really unaware of his wife's crime. But even though his wife did such a terrible thing, Kevin stood by her in court until the end. As a result of the trial, Lisa Montgomery was sentenced to death on 8 December 2020. As for the rescued girl, Victoria Jo, there is virtually no public record of her because her family skillfully hid her from the press. The only thing that can be said for sure is that every December 16, Victoria meets simultaneously with a smile and with sadness, because every new birthday she has is also every new anniversary of her mother's death.
This case has finally come to a close, but we will never stop missing Bobby Jo. She was a sweet and loving wife, daughter, and sister, and would have been a wonderful mother.